Oh, wait, yes! Story! Okay, Hedwyn, what happened? After his liberation, Hedwyn was instrumental in the events leading to the fall of the Commonwealth and was vital to the outcome of the plan. The peaceful outcome of the scribe's return was attributed to several key factors. One of them was the underlying ambition of the plan itself. Scribe's return. Inspired by the liberated exiles, the people of the Commonwealth demanded new leadership. Another was Hedwyn's visibility among the people in the streets. Identified to be a liberated exile, he was believed to be Golgolothanian, reborn. More importantly, however, was that one of the winged harps of the High-Wing remnants accompanied him. She was later identified as Fikani Shang, and that was his girlfriend. Their bond was symbolic of what was at stake that night, and proved vital to the peace that followed. In all his days as a leader in the Saurian Union, Hedwyn oft confided in his friend Jadariel. Despite her intense manner, there was no one whom he trusted more in times when circumspection was required. Hedwyn would often think back about the vow he made at the beginning of his quest for freedom. Although he cherished all the friendships he made, he had pledged to Jadariel, Rookie Greentail, and the Reader of the Nightwings that they might all be free again together. He had broken that vow, for in the end, not all of them were able to return. A terrible guilt over this darkened his mood for a time. Things are glowing, you're missing text. I'm assuming, like, it'll cover it when we go to Jadariel, and I don't want to spoil Jadariel's stuff before I actually get there. I am doing that on purpose. However, the others whom he still knew lifted his spirits, much like he had often lifted theirs. All of the Nightwings knew the stakes. While the others who stood with the Nightwings were not able to remain in contact thus, Hedwyn thought of each of them often, and so in turn did they oft think of him. I wonder if he's not guilty if you accept freedom? That seems likely. Oh, and he's disappeared. Okay, Sandra. After the cycle of the rite ceased turning, records of what happened to the Black Wagon of the Nightwings became inconclusive and contradictory. Some accounts suggest that the exiles of the Nightwings who remained in the downside continued to make use of the Black Wagon as their place of shelter and their means of travel. However, there is no record of what happened to the wagon's contents, such as the Book of Rites or the Beyonder Crystal, said to be haunted by the apparition Sandra the Unseeing. One possibility is that when the lone minstrel took his leave, he took the Beyonder Crystal with him, for he was thus obliged. By this line of reasoning, however, the Black Wagon itself should have been taken also. Others remain skeptical that the Beyonder Crystal ever existed, or rather, that the visions that it granted were anything other than the result of an active imagination or fever dream. The bog dwellers of the southern bogs offer still another explanation, for they are familiar with binding enchantments. If there existed such an object in which the Sisters of the Arch had been expelled for more than 800 years, then the enchantment could have expired along with the light of the stars. What this would have meant for Sandra and the Beyonders is difficult to say for certain, other than it may have meant they were finally released. Nevertheless, the fates of Sandra and the Beyonder Crystal remain unknown. Yet, those exiles of the Nightwings who claimed to have seen this apparition all spoke of her with degrees of reverence, or perhaps a little fear. I feel like she'd enjoy that legacy. Yay! Can you believe this, reader? Honestly. Sandra has appeared before you, as well you can see. They are so far from the mark with all this nonsense, I am wont to laugh. In fact, here goes. She laughs. She is referring to the account of her. You sense she does not care for it. Well, let them gossip all they like. I merely wish they would mention you in at least passing when next they are at it. Though they shall never know even the half of it, shall they? Sandra seems irritated by the incomplete account of what happened to her. Reasure her. The account was relatively flattering despite a lack of detail, it could have been worse. Humour her. Perhaps making some light of the situation will make Sandra feel better. Or remain silent. Sometimes Sandra just needs a little time to vent. She values that you listen. I kind of want to go for humour. Although that sounds patronizing. Regia, humor, like, remain silent is obviously not an option here. Like, even if she likes that. I'm gonna go for humor. Why not? Okay, well, I'm glad I did. You indicate to Sandra that the real truth of what happened between you would perhaps make too lascivious a tale to be told in such a format. She makes a bemused sound at this. Perhaps that story ought to get out then. To think they would go to all the trouble to make literacy accepted once again, only to print such drivel. Anyway, let us keep going, lovely reader. We know the truth of it. That is what matters. Cannon! Best ship is cannon! She fades into the Beyond a Crystal, for now, and you tuck it away, safe. I wonder if we only got that because, like, we exhausted all of the dialogue paths. Tizo. The imp called Tizo was the first of his kind to achieve liberty through the rites. While he was not the only imp trained in the ways of the scribes, imps are native to the downside and thus care not for travelling abroad. This made them useful for the triumvirates. Yet Tizo had a different calling, and the Nightwings believed that he too could play a key part in Volfred Sandalwood's plan. During the night of Scribe's return, he stood out to the populace as something of a miracle. They had only heard of downside imps before, from legends of Haub the Swallow. I wonder if she has a different bio if you free yourself. I'm glad we didn't free ourselves in that case. We needed to stay with our girlfriend. Afterwards, he became something of an icon, representing both the fall of the Commonwealth and the beginning of a new era. Sandalwood sometimes called for his assistance, and Tizo was always happy to oblige. The two would often reminisce about their times with the Lone Minstrel. Tizo often missed his interactions with the reader of the Nightwings. Okay, I should look at my name at least. You, the reader. You are an exile of the Commonwealth, sentenced to life in the downside. Once merely the status of a deviant, yet now a revered title in the Saurian Union. They had quickly built quite a rapport back in the downside. He and Aurelek reconciled as well. Aurelek offered him free room and board, and that was that. Tizo liked riding on his shoulders. Aww. And Tizo would often express wistful gratitude for all his time conducting the rites alongside the Nightwings, who made such sacrifices for him. Other than that, Tizo was diligent about his role as something of a living artifact, and helped interpret for the messenger imps that relayed news to and from the downside. Despite having gained significant celebrity, he never let it go to his head. Although he did take full advantage of his access to the Saurian Union's fishing industry. Okay, yeah, the new nation. Should we do all our pals first, and then all the enemies? I think that makes sense. When the worm Gilman returned to the Commonwealth, he believed that he had regained something even more important than his freedom. His honour. Gilman relinquished his knighthood, and declined an opportunity to serve as captain on the Blood Border. He was not interested in fighting any longer. Yet, as is sometimes the case with those such as he, a circumstance soon came about in which there came a need for him to once again make use of his military training. Thankfully, however, the scribe's return ended peaceably. Gilman was on edge throughout that night, expecting violence to erupt at any moment. Do you think it actually rolls dice at the end and you get your percent chances listed in the plan? I mean, that would be interesting. I would like to see a version of the game where you, like, free all of the other people and your plan fails. Like, what happens then? When the matter was at last put to rest, then Gilman truly knew his time as a knight had ended. He declared to all those in earshot that he would never fight again. Unless, of course, there arose some other extraordinary set of circumstance, again requiring him to fight, but he certainly hoped not. He still trained regularly just in case, especially with his fleet-footed friend Rookie Greentail. He was always grateful for having studied under the reader of the Nightwings, without whom he would never have completed his penance. Because of this, and perhaps because they were on opposite sides of the world now, Gilman dedicated his life to them. By that point, he had long forgotten about his days under the leadership of Sir Deluge, his former commander. Breaking free of his abusive leadership was his first step towards gaining a bit of self-respect. What happened? I know this scene, do you want to know? I don't know, ask Ash. Ig, feel free to tell us. We've finished the game now. I don't think we can be spoiled any longer. Gilman never did return to his homeland of the Sea Dominion, and was content to lead a monastic life on a small residence in the hills. It was just high up enough to make him keep striving to conquer his fear of heights. Other than that, an intense daily training regimen and the occasional visit from an old companion was more than enough to keep him optimistic and engaged. He knew by then that honour was not something to be won, but a contract with oneself, to be renewed each day. He did it! Okay. Rookie. After Rookie Greentail earned back his freedom, he returned to a lavish welcome ceremony in the Commonwealth, as was the tendency for liberated exiles. It was everything he could have hoped for, and soon he was well off, surrounded by luxury and choosing between various exciting opportunities. However, he must have given in to his better judgment, as he did end up siding with Volfred Sandalwood's revolutionary forces, as he promised. Yes, it's deterministic. There's a specific number of successful liberations for a revolution and a higher number for a bloodless revolution. Okay, I'm glad we got the best end then. On the night of Scribe's return, Greentail was there with the others, inspiring the masses. He never looked prouder, the very image of John Ware Manymane himself. When dawn finally came, and it became clear that the Commonwealth that everybody knew would be no more, he realized many new opportunities awaited. He began quite a lucrative career for himself, manufacturing and selling replica merchandise inspired by the downside. His main struggle was to meet demand. An aspect of his conscience cautioned him against making light of such a thing. But the money was too good, and soon his family was as well off as he always said. He also kept in close touch with Gilman, ever the perfect practice partner. They would train together often, taking care to stay in tip-top shape as much as possible through the years. Greentail always did his best to keep in touch with all his many friends, and knew that he owed his fortunes to them. He made a special point of staying close with the group of friends he came to know so well during his time with the Nightwings, wherever they were. They shared a special understanding that put even Greentail at a loss for words sometimes. I mean, let's be real, Gilman Rookie is basically canon too. Okay, I think I want to do everyone we liberated first, and then everyone we didn't. So, Jodie. After her liberation, Jodariel. Yeah. Jodariel soon became an icon of the movement that led to the collapse of the Commonwealth and the rise of the Saurian Union. I can speak English, I swear. Her horns and stern countenance inspired the people to believe that she was Salayam Mur, reborn. She became a great, if reluctant, leader. In the uncertain times that followed, Jodariel's seasoned expertise often came into play, both in matters of security and state. Also, she's smiling! I don't think we've ever seen her smile before. No, you speak Australian? Okay, but that means you speak American. For instance, she conscripted and trained a team of volunteers in public safety. The community did not know what to make of such a cordial bunch at first, but soon came to value their service. They have stood for the people ever since, and we celebrate their founding day each year. She remained close with Hedwyn all through this experience, and they supported each other through their struggles many, many times. Y'all! I don't say y'all, I say y'all. Is that not how y'all is said, though? You'll have to tell me now. She often had to stop herself from fearing for Faye, whom she tried to look after as much as possible in the downside. Oh, the mum friend! Soon she would reassure herself that Faye was very capable of surviving on her own, and in fact she was not mistaken. I sure don't say it like that. What? The A is more open in the US? Y'all? Yale? What? How? Y'all? Y'all? No, I can't do it. I don't understand what you're trying to do. I don't understand how American mouths work. She continued training on her own, a regimen that grew stricter with each passing year. There were those who sought to train with her, and she sometimes obliged. It is pronounced like the word all with a yas sound before it. Y'all? Okay, so it's not like combined into one drawl, it's two distinct syllables. That's terrible. That's terrible and you should feel bad, America. There remained one other constant in her life. She would always remember her days among the Nightwings, and with fondness for the most part. It's one syllable? What? Y'all. That's what I'm saying! I am saying all with a Y in front of it. Y'all. I don't understand. Okay, you stayed behind. Volfred, how are you doing? When Volfred Sandalwood regained his freedom, he knew that his work had only just begun. What you're saying is very close to right? No, you're going Yule? I'm not going Yule! Yull? Y'all. Yeah, your all is different from ours. Like, you say all like all though, comparatively? You just either about to be less of an O and more of an O! Oh my god! What?! Okay, no. We can fix this. At some point, one of you record yourself saying y'all, and I will attempt to copy it. And also, can you say one of, like, whoever does that, also say O-L-L, ol, for me though, because I want to know what it sounds like in American. Your vowels are incorrect. The nation that had exiled him to life in the downside now prepared to honor him. But he was not interested in such ceremony, nor in freedom on the Commonwealth's own terms. Ashkatom, get in general on your Discord. Hang on, no, let me finish this, and then we can try. I can get Thai to do it, they're a native North Carolinian? What? Okay, Logic, please get Thai to do it for me if you can. That would be great. He soon rejoined his agents, with whom he had been coordinating for years, slowly, carefully preparing for a night that soon would come. For Sandalwood and his loyalists and sympathizers, true freedom was at stake. Not just theirs, but that of everyone living under the Commonwealth. He hoped to gather liberated exiles representing each of the 8 largest ethnic groups composing the population of the Commonwealth. They would stand together as a vision of the 8 scribes returned, inspiring the masses to embrace an older set of values from before the Commonwealth had tightened its grip. With the rites having ended sooner than expected, this optimal scenario became impossible, but Sandalwood did not relent and prepared to execute his plan, imperfect though it was. On the night of Scribe's return, he stood as one of 6 former exiles of the Nightwings, and their voices echoed together through the streets. These former exiles, who ought to have disappeared into the ranks of the Commonwealth's own leadership, now stood united with its people, who poured from their homes in solidarity. It was imperative to Sandalwood that this stand against the Commonwealth be peaceful in its nature. An overwhelming show of popular support would be more than enough. Ensuring this was his priority that night, and in the end the result was self-evident. The plan's goal had been achieved. And I can't wait to get to Oralek. I am looking forward to seeing, like, the enemy teams. Sandalwork's work far from over still. Was far from over still. Don't omit words, it confuses my brain. He laboured ceaselessly with representatives from across the population to restore a sense of stability. This transitional period had its troubles, though none that were not quickly solved, such was the will and spirit of the people. They understood their freedom carried new responsibility. After the Sarian Union was born the next year, Sandalwood was elected as the nation's first Prime Minister. It was not his intent to run for this office, but the people chose him anyway. He led our fledgling nation through its nascent years. This is basically the beginning of Australia. One of his allies in all this was the imp Tizo, with whom he travelled all across the downside. Sandalwood often cited Tizo as the wellspring of his own enthusiasm for a brighter future, such was the creature's spirit. He evidently made amends with his old one-time friend Oralek, with whom he clashed during their days as exiles. I'm so glad to hear that! Oralek was instated as the nation's chief physician, and became a close confidant. As Walfred Sandalwood gained more fame throughout this land for all his sacrifices and his contributions, he remained ever steadfast about two things. The first was that the cause itself ought to remain in focus, the freedom that the people had achieved. It was a gift to be cherished, a set of values that needed to be nurtured. The second point he made was that he himself had little to do with that outcome. He would often praise the exiles of the Nightwings who had stood with him, each in turn by name. He never forgot any of them. We can go back to Y'all, chat. Y'all! I don't... Y'all. I treasure y'all. Listen, at least I've given you something to like. I feel that this has done something for cross-country relations here. One day, on his birthday, the people of the Sarian Union presented to him a monument depicting him and the Nightwings as imagined in their prime. It has since ensured that those of us with memories more fallible than that of Sandalwood likewise remember the achievements of his fellow former exiles, and our cause. I just don't care as much about the tree? Yeah, basically. Okay. I'm tempted to pick off some of these. And I know you all want Falcon Ron. Okay, let's go left to right, I guess. Long after the rites had ended, Faye admitted that she knew well before the fact that she would not be going home again. At least she had a very strong feeling. Also, it just started raining here kind of heavily, so I am sorry if you all can hear that. She ended up not minding very much because she had little to return to in the Commonwealth. Her sense of home had changed. She took to wandering from one celestial landmark to the next, ever paying homage to the 8 scribes, who she believed had influenced all that transpired. I heard that I'm supposed to speak up on how to say a particular word, so howdy y'all. Thank you, Thai. Good input. I appreciate it. She was no stranger to travelling alone, but was always happy to have company. Through it all, she would wonder how her little friend Tizo had fared. While they were divided now by a great distance, he always remained in her heart. Though they could not see each other any longer, Faye often thought about Jadariel, and spoke to her as though she were there. Oh, that's sad. Faye tried never to make a decision without first consulting her idea of what Miss Jadariel might say. Whenever she felt genuine doubt, which was not very often, she sought out the reader of the Nightwings. If there was anyone whom she trusted as much as the scribes, it was them. One day, she encountered one of her former adversaries, one called Alma Oldheart. Oh, that's true! They wouldn't have been able to be friends if we'd sent her home. Who had served the fate. She remembered him much more than he did her, though only just at first. Their shared experience in the rites and their different points of view about the scribes formed the basis of what grew to be a long-lasting relationship. Yes! Faye was always devoted to her faith, but more so to her friends. Her gentle manner and unwavering conviction often helped them brave life in the downside, both with courage and with grace. Aww. Okay, Pamatha. After the rides ended, Pamitha Thane parted ways with the other Nightwings, stating that she needed time alone. She reappeared sometime after the fall of the Commonwealth, although she expressed mild surprise at the news. She claimed to have no knowledge of what went on, including what role the Highwing remnants had in the events that reshaped the world on the other side. For her part, Pamitha feigned little interest, making the point that they were stuck, and what happened elsewhere had little to do with them now. Someone with whom she kept in contact was a bog dweller called Big Bertrude. They would discuss all sorts of matters long into the night, and sometimes hunt together too. One day, while travelling to Blacker Basin, Pamitha ran into her blood sister, Tamitha, for the first time since the conclusion of the rites. Their reunion was not as amicable as Pamitha might have hoped, and Tamitha, still resentful of their history together, turned violent. Oh man, this is not good! Pamitha would later brush aside the incident, though always had an injury to show for it. Yet, from that point on, the Blood Sisters were back on speaking terms. At least for the most part. That's positive! Having long since felt as though she had no home to call her own, Pamitha continued travelling about the downside. As the tempest swept across the land, changing its features, she found in it a sublime beauty, and in the starless nights, she still could see just fine. She said such travels tended to remind her of when she was younger, and could fly unfettered. That's, like, not as bad as it could have been. Several exiles of the Nightwings cared more for the plan of Sandalwood than to return home from the downside. The crone called Big Bertrude was a prime example. She had found a suitable environment to live, within the dismal region known as Flagging Hands. There she had built up a thriving place of business known to many exiles in the land. With the rites having ended, she returned to her preoccupations, working away, almost as though nothing had happened. When one gets to be more than 400 years of age, perhaps then even monumental events such as the culmination of the rites or the collapse of the Commonwealth are seen as trifling matters. Oh, I said amicable wrong? Well, okay, I'm sorry, it's obviously amicable. I'll pronounce it correctly from now on. Much of her effort was doubtless due to the influence of Sandalwood, someone whom she had admired now for decades. Though they were very far apart now, she sought out news as to his whereabouts, and found his actions in the Saurian Union a rare source of inspiration. She maintained an unlikely kinship with the harp Pamitha Thane, whom she had known during their time together in the Nightwings. They each had different strategies for dealing with life's day-to-day annoyances, a subject that they both found vital, if not fascinating, to no end. By and large, Bertrude kept focus on her work. Whether casting small enchantments or imbuing talismans, the work brought her a sense of purpose, she would say. We split up a ship? I doubt it would have, culminated anyway. Consummated, that's the word I was looking for. In the Commonwealth, such services were strictly forbidden, but in the downside, there was a real need for simple luxuries, which the competing slug market could not always provide. Thus did Big Bertrude continue to live up to her name, and the tales of her days with the Nightwings made her that much more the living legend. I'd love to see what their alternate epilogues would say, though. It's interesting. Okay, Falcon Rod. With the rites drawn to a close, the slug market's revenues fell precipitously, and Falcon Ron was forced to liquidate his assets and close up shop. Yet, as is sometimes the case with those of an entrepreneurial leaning, this time of hardship led to an epiphany, or at least a sudden change of fortune. One day, Falcon Ron had a run-in with a messenger imp bearing news from the other side. Ron gave it to one of his remaining trinkets which could not be sold. Gave to it one of the... Okay, he gave the imp a trinket. Right, got it. Oh, sentence structure. The following week, the messenger imp returned to him bearing a tidy sum of wealth in newly minted coinage from the Saurian Union. He started a mail order service. Falcon Ron cut a long-term deal with the messenger imp, then and there. Though his trade remained a grey area from a legal standpoint in the Saurian Union, the newfound fame of the downside caused Falcon Ron's goods to explode in popularity. He later signed an elaborate agreement with Big Bertrude's, and found a distribution partner on the other side through Rookie Greentail. That's what I thought. Whose own business had expanded. Yeah, that doesn't say anything new. Especially in the Saurian Union, Falcon Ron's goods are still known for their superior quality, though he assumes no liability for any side effects. Okay.